Hello, everybody. Welcome to the PiesNation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. My name is Nicholas Sacco, your host for this week's episode 20 of Season 5. We're episode 133. If you're counting from the beginning, we only needed one quarter to fly past the Dockers. It was a convincing 46-point triumph at the MCG, and now all roads lead to the Adelaide Oval this Saturday night for a huge opportunity to go 2 games clear on top. We take a deep dive into that Freo victory with some more selection headaches to discuss along the way, then chat plenty about the power on AskPiesNation and speak to our next guest, the crowd competition winner. A nice handy Saturday afternoon win, and to help me get through it, we've got Luke Humphries and Jack Dugan. Boys, welcome. Just a nice easy triumph there on Saturday Arvo, as I just mentioned. 46-point winners in the end over the Dockers. The second quarter was all we needed.
Yeah, it was nice and relaxing in the end, really. And after a second quarter burst, you were there, Jack. How was it at the ground? Because it looked bloody good on TV.
Yeah, the footy was hot, but the temperature was bloody cold sitting there at level 3 at MCG. I was absolutely freezing my butt off. But no, once again, Nico, the Pies, 1 quarter is all it took. So imagine how scary it would be if we could put on 2, 3, maybe even 4 quarters of footy. We'd be well and truly unstoppable, I'm sure. But yeah, no, looking forward to dissecting what was a dominant win.
Yeah, and I mean, we've done it before where it has been 2 or 3 quarters. The day that it becomes a full 4 against a really powerful side, it's going to be
And
insane.
that's what I'm holding on to, is that it's sort of strategic at the moment, that we're not sort of killing ourselves going full pedal to the metal for the 4 quarters at this point in the season, probably against sort of opposition like Gold Coast Freos at the moment, and sort of biding our time, getting everything right. So then once we get towards that sort of September period, it is 3 to 4 quarters of that, what we're seeing at the moment. So,
well, yeah, I don't think our season's defined in the next sort of month, Nico, but we're going to get a really good look at our finals credentials. I know we sit top of the ladder, game clear after round 18. If you had said that to any of us, pre-season, we would have taken that and ran with it. But, Port this week, then Carlton, who have all of a sudden somehow found themselves back in form and are going to make a late premiership charge. Hawthorn should win that, but then you play Geelong, Brisbane, and Essendon. So, yeah, we're going to get a really, really good look at, just how well we're going to stack up come the pointy end of the year for sure.
But you would prefer to be playing those teams instead of an easy run into September, where you have sort of the lower sides on the table, and then you get sort of shell-shocked when you get to the first week. So I don't mind it. It'll be a good challenge for us, but if anyone's capable of it right now, we are. So pretty keen to see how we go. Let's get to Saturday's game and start, as we always do, with the pie that caught your eye. One of those 23 blokes. Jack, who did you lean towards this week?
So it was Oleg Markov this week for mine, Nico. Something going on in the background of the PiesNation space, so keep an eye on all the socials for Lukey's post for that. But had 15 disposals, went at 87% with 4 intercept possessions and 354 metres gained. Once again, showing all his doubters and giving them evidence on why he's in the side and doing what he's doing. But it's actually not his footy that caught my eye this week. It was his celebrating. Now, I know there's some footage circulating of him celebrating about 200 metres off the ball when Braden Maynard gave us that awesome 3 repeat effort on the wing there in front of the members. But that certainly wasn't an isolated incident. He did that like 3 or 4 or 5 times throughout the game. And it was just so good to see a bloke in the context of Oleg's season this year, where he's come from, out there enjoying his footy, celebrating the little wins, which I'm sure Craig McRae absolutely loves. There was a passage of play where I think he was like running down the wing, typical Oleg style, and then hit Jamie Elliott out on a lead. And I think he was more excited about the kick going to Elliott than Elliott was to go ahead and kick the goal. So just really enjoyed that. It brought a bit of fun to Saturday afternoon's game, and yeah, more plays from Oleg.
It's why he is in the side. Yes, we know how quick he can be on field, but the culture that he is accustomed to so quickly off field and celebrating those little wins, as you mentioned, Jack, it's awesome to see, and he just plays such a critical role. He is in our finals 22.
It's the energy and the camaraderie he brings, and sort of those little things that, it's not what he's doing necessarily with the ball, but yeah, sort of what the fun he brings to the side and sort of sums up sort of Fly's philosophy, and probably why he went and got Ollie across. So loving the way he's going about it. The player that caught my eye was Taylor Adams. Now, we just had him on a few weeks ago, and I reckon he's gone to another level since he joined us on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Yes, of course.
He sort of, felt like he struggled a bit early in the season with Tay coming in, and we spoke about that with him, sort of his role changing, but I think he sort of moved across to the half-forward line, still getting that midfield time as well, but able to blend it in a nice way and still help out when required in the midfield. He kicked 2 goals, had the 23 disposals as well, so 9 tackles on top of that, so still doing the grunt work as always.
And 9 MVP votes as well with the Coaches Awards. So yeah, just goes to show that he's going at another level as well. So brilliant to see Tate get a bit of a spark as well, and hopefully we can continue to see that throughout. Yeah, this was a tough one to pick, but I ended up going with Josh Dacos as the player that caught my eye because, again, he's probably the man we're talking about if his brother doesn't have 36 touches, but he still had an outstanding game, 31 disposals, 5 score involvements, 7 clearances, 6 marks, and was able to go on with a goal along with his 463 metres gained. We are still seeing something special with Josh just as much as we are with Nick, and we talk about Nick Dacos and how crucial he's been and his development that's gone to another level every single week. Well, Josh, simply put, is playing the best season he's ever played in a black and white jumper, and he's going to be an All-Australian wingman. Just his efficiency with the ball is phenomenal. His vision is next level. His ability to go up forward and have an impact on the scoreboard. And yeah, just the impact he has around the ground is so incredible. And maybe it's a good thing for him that it's getting underlooked because it's allowing him to play the way he is. But he has just been able to take his game to the next step each and every time he's faced with a challenge. And I'm just so impressed with what he's been able to produce, not just for a couple of weeks in a season, but for the long haul over the last 12 to 18 months. He has been superb. So shout out to Josh as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Nico. He's one, even for me, like, I feel like you don't notice him a lot on game day, but then you're looking at the stats, which is sort of a dangerous thing to sometimes do. But I feel like for Josh, it's the opposite. You know, his game really is, the story is told on the stat sheet with, you know, his ball accumulation, his meters gained, and then now in recent weeks, his ability to hit the scoreboard more often. So yeah, having an extremely underrated season by virtue of the fact that his brother is Nick Dacos, and pretty hard to get in front of him at the moment. But yeah, if he's not All-Australian wingman this year, the system is broke.
There's a few good wingmen out there, but yeah, Josh should be right up there and pretty much in there, locked in.
Him and Errol, I think, have to be the wingman this year, but we'll see.
But it looks like Josh and Nick will go 1 and 2 for Copeland in any case, so it shows how good of a season Josh has had. Yeah, absolutely flying.
Well, let's get to Nick then, before we get to the rest, because, again, we have to.
Play?
Just the lazy 36 for Nick Dacos. 5 marks, 4 tackles, 11 contested possessions, 11 score involvements, 568 metres gained, 21 pressure acts, 7 clearances, and 1 goal, which could have been 2 or 3 very easily as well. I don't really know what else to say, except that you just sit there and laugh at his bulks, the ability of him to just get through any situation. It's almost as if players are scared to approach him, and you don't see that many times at AFL level because it's like opposition are going to him and saying, I don't want to get too close because he's just going to run by me otherwise. So, yeah, I lost for words once again. He was outstanding, and he's just edged his name further into our Brownlow medal, I think.
Well, the thing is, he just works harder than anyone else. If you watch replay vision, go back after being at the game and then watching it again on replay, and you just see the running on that he continues to do, and whether the ball goes defensively or offensively, he'll keep running, and if it goes offensively for us, he's on the chain of 3-4 handballs and keeps going, whereas his opponent has stopped and started ball watching, whereas Nick has kept going. So that's sort of been the separator for him. But for a guy at 20 years old to be doing that and excelling at it above the rest of the competition is just insane, really, for just pure work rate. And that's not even looking at his skill with the footy smarts. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, that Brownlow credential thing, I still can't believe that even I'm buying into it now, Nico. I mean, come the bye this year, you heard whispers of it, that his name was going to be up there. I know all the odds and all the various betting agencies, gamble responsibly, of course, have him right up there as a favourite, which I just thought was ridiculous. But then now you sit here and go, like, at the moment, he is the best player in the competition, certainly form-wise, and he's 20 years old. So, yeah, pretty scary. I'm lost for words as well. That's all I can say.
Well, I think Butters was sort of the contender, and he's kind of fallen off a little in the last few weeks, and then I think he might miss this week. So Nick's got, a few games ahead of him now, I think, and it's going to be hard to catch going to the back end.
He's the cornerstone of our team. Incredible to even say that about this Collingwood lineup, but he is. He starts things, he creates chains out of nowhere, and it's phenomenal to even
steals
think
the
about.
ball off teammates.
Yes.
But it's like Buck said the year before he was drafted, he would be in our best 22 this year, and this was when he was 17. So, and you almost laugh like, oh, Bucks is just pulling our leg a bit here. But he, like, looking back, you go, no, he was genuinely serious that he probably would have been in that best 22 and being a key contributor.
Like, I'm not saying it's as good. Like, it's certainly not as good just yet because there's still 6 weeks to go in the season or whatever it is. But it's got that same feel about it that Dusty's Brownlow year had, in the fact that Dusty stood out so much in that year. You walk into Brownlow night knowing that the medal's his. It's at the moment, if the count stopped this week, that's the feeling I've got. And I'm usually pretty bullish, especially when it comes to Collingwood players around that. So, yeah, it's a special season from Nick so far. And hopefully it was, got a lot of tough games coming up, as we've said. So if you can stand out in those games as well, it's Charlie is all his.
Yeah, absolutely, it would be. Another couple of individual highlights. Braden Maynard's game. Oh, what a
Those
ball.
tackles.
Not that we didn't know already what he can bring to the table, but just in case, he set the tone from the first seconds of the game with that huge tackle on Michael Walters, and that's all you needed to hear. We'll see 20 disposals. He had 8 tackles, 21 pressure acts, and still managed to have 6 score involvements as well from his work in the defensive half. This was a terrific performance from Braden Maynard. As I mentioned, set the tone early, and this is what he can bring to the table. He doesn't need to do anything flashy from half back. We've got players that do that already. It's the grunt, and it's the aggressive style that he puts to the table that makes him so awesome to watch.
And he sets the tone after the game as well, telling Port Adelaide they better bring their A game.
Like it.
But
I like it.
It's not. It is a bit of arrogance, but you do that is the confidence of this footy club at the moment that and that's how I'm beginning to feel as a fan, that no matter who we're up against, where we're playing, I'm confident that we are the better side and we should be confident going into the game. And that's how they feel at the moment. They want the challenge of Port Adelaide in Adelaide. There's probably the second best team in it right now. It's a good chance to go, well, we're the best side. Let's see how we go against the next best and prove that we are the best side. So fighting words from Bruzzy. Now he'll have to back it up on the field next week, which I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
No issues in
driving someone into the ground in the first minute.
Yeah. What do you think of Maynard's disposal from watching him?
Yeah, really, really good. I think he really benefited from having that week off and rest. Did Braz as have a few others. He got a really heavy knock. I know that massive tackle on Walters, but there wasn't long after that before he just looked to have a sore shoulder, which I was like, oh no. And then he goes off and has the game that he has, and you just think, wow, this bloke's exceptional. I'd hate to know what his medical sort of sheet looks like at the moment in terms of what he's doing to get himself up for week in, week out games. But his form has been exceptional. We know, as you guys have said, the physicality that he brings, but he's seeming to bring, a lot of smart decisions. He's getting himself involved in that link-up play, not so much being the John Noble or the Isaac Quainer who's running off half-back, but he's an outlet kick option. His ball use has been damaging. So, yeah, he had an exceptional game on Saturday afternoon.
That passage of play in that second term where he was able to impact, I think it was a 2 or 3 on 1, and then it resulted in him smothering Andrew Brayshaw's kick out of bounds. And then to see everyone get around him, we were close to 40, 50 points up in that second quarter. It wasn't, and I think there was only 3 or 4 minutes to go. So it wasn't as if it was game on the line stuff. It's game on the line to them every single moment. Yeah. That's why we play the moments, and that's why Fly's been so big on trying to express that towards our team, and it was highlighted again there by Bruz. So that's why he's been able to step up as a leader as well. Stepping up again was Jamie Elliott, who another 4 goals. He's just flying under the radar at the moment, and without Mychek in that team at the moment, he is playing exceptional football from a goals point of view, but he's also been able to just create these types of games and, takes some really strong marks, not the high-flying Jamie Elliott we've got to use to in the early stages, but he took some really strong contested grabs. He had pressure acts, he had score involvements, he was doing it all, and he was playing like a true small forward.
I feel like he's a real barometer for us. If Elliott's getting on the end of a few, able to get that space in that forward line, when he's kicking goals, he's sort of never the number 1, number 2, or even number 3 target in there. So if he's able to get on the end of a few, that means we're going to get a few from a few others in there. The McStays, the Myerchecks when he's in there. And that forward line just looks unbelievable at the moment. No matter where you look, there's a goal coming from someone. And then you've got the midfielders chipping in, Tay Adams as well. So it's just... we look so scary when going forward. And that second quarter, just watching a bit of it before, it was just insane. It was like, you can't stop this team. When we're on, you cannot stop us. And then Bobby Hill pops up and dribbles one through, and it's just like they're popping up from everywhere. But yeah, I feel like with Elliott, when he's taken a few marks and able to kick straight, it just shows that it feels like we're going to be on for that day.
Yeah, and I was really interested to hear his comments post-game as well, Nico, when asked about if he really benefited from having the week or two off with that injury and if that sort of refreshed him for a back half of the year. Because I know a lot of Collingwood supporters, a little bit of the media commentary as well, was potentially wondering if Jamie Elliott's best footy was behind him and if this was, he was reaching a sort of heel point in his career and he was going to be starting to head towards the back end of it. But he sort of said that he's felt as good as what he is now back then, but he's just now he's been able to get on the end of the good work, which is sort of the nature of a forward pockets position sometimes. But yeah, I found that especially interesting. So it'd be good to see, hopefully, if he can still have that impact when someone like a Brody Myercheck comes back into it and what his role then turns into.
Another player I want to quickly highlight is Jack Crisp. When I got to speak to our good friends at the Freo Purple Rain, I should say, podcast, so great to chat to them during the week and let them know how good we are. One of the questions they asked me was, which player do you expect to dominate against Fremantle? And apart from the obvious answer of Nick Dacos, statistically it was actually Jack Crisp who averages the most disposals in his career against Fremantle. I found out last night that the game on Saturday was his 6th highest rated game of his career. And when you look back on it, how efficient was he by foot? I think he was one of our more efficient players across the afternoon. And again, we know that he's been in a good patch of form recently too, but he's just another one of those players that is really playing his role. He's being that link up. He's got that ability to transition from midfield to half back, even to half forward if necessary. And I think that he has also been someone that, despite having some quiet patches throughout the campaign, that he has again been someone that has really benefited from the game style and has now gotten to a point where his best footy is coming to show again. He's won our last 2 best and fairest, believe it or not, and yet there was some scrutiny from potential people about his place in the side, but fair enough too. There's some good points you made. Nonetheless, I think the last fortnight has proven why he's best 22 material.
Yeah, we talk about people writing Jamie Elliott off. I just about all but wrote Jack Crisp off as well. With all the selection headaches and whatnot we were having, I just thought a bit of ruthlessness. You just go after the bloke that's perhaps haven't been going as well as what you think. But you quickly forget, as Nico just said, that this bloke's won our last 2 best and fairest. Last year we got to a prelim, so you have to be going pretty good to be winning a best and fairest in a side that's playing in a prelim final. So, yeah, no, look, he's been exceptional, ironically, since I put the Moz on him. No correlation or relation there. But, yeah, he's been good, Jack Crisp. And it's nice to see that there's still a role within this side for him. I mean, obviously with Tommy Mitchell, Jordan De Goey, Nick Dacos all going into the midfield. Yeah, I was a bit worried more where he actually fits in. And Braden Maynard going out, I thought maybe that was the role for him off half-back. But as you just said, Nico, he's sort of found this awesome blend between halfback and midfield, and he really seems to be relishing. Obviously got on the end of a goal as well on Saturday, so yeah, good to see Chrissy back in form, and yeah, never doubted him.
He's just reminding all of us.
Yeah, that's exactly
and
right.
It's right. He's how damaging he can be when he gets on the end of a few, works his butt off as well, so it's great to see him back in some ripping form.
Mr. Consistent.
That's it.
That's all
how many games consecutive now?
A lot.
2.
Lots and lots.
A lot.
That's our answer. That second quarter, can we just touch on that very briefly? 10 goals we kicked in that term, and it was after a first quarter where we started okay. Freo kicked a couple late, and it was a 5-point game at quarter time, and I'm sure even Freo fans thought, okay, we're in the balance here. We've kept up with them so far. Let's see if we can continue to do so. And then they were just obliterated by the Mighty Pies in that second term, and they never looked back. We didn't really need to find a way to do that again in that third and fourth quarter, as nice as it would have been. But how did it feel with the crowd getting involved after every single goal that came? It just goes to show again the people power have a big say in how well we've been going.
Well, it all happened so fast, Nick, as you just said, only 5 points up at quarter time. Then all of a sudden you look up and we're 50 points ahead at half time. It's just happened so quick. I'm sure even the Freo players and supporters have been sitting there going, what the hell's just happened? It happened so quick. Look, I think when you've got like blokes like Jamie Elliott, Ash Johnson, Bobby Hill taking and kicking goals right on the line, it's a sign of that you're going really, really well when you're able to get it so deep and still be so dangerous. So, yeah, no, they were absolutely elite in that second quarter. That's the game right there, essentially. I mean, you go off and I can't remember what we went by. I think 46 points in the end. So there's your game in that second term. And as we said off the top, imagine if against a really good side, if we're able to produce that style of footy for 3 quarters.
They actually won the game outside of that second quarter by I think it was 2 points they won it by. So I still think we controlled it pretty well for the other 3 quarters, but we're just going through the motions essentially. And obviously, you sub Pendles off, tactical sub, you bring Mitchell on, gets a run in his legs, and he copped a bit of a knock at one point. Oh, great, of course. But no, I think teams are genuinely scared for, you don't know when it's going to come, where it's going to come from, whether you're in front, whether you're behind. This Collingwood army, this machine that just decides to switch itself on at some point. And we've seen it last year, was always the last quarter, but this year we're starting to see it's happening at different points throughout the game, and you're going to blow them away, and then all of it, when it's 50 points, you're not coming back from that. So it's exciting for us, especially when you're there. It's going to be an exciting ride to the end of the year.
What do you think of that Tom Mitchell sub call that was made by Fly? There was a lot of comments made by fans about how it would have been a nice opportunity for one of our VFL boys to step up and play a role. I know Finn McRae and Josh Carmichael have been two that people have been keen to get into that senior team. There was no VFL across the weekend, of course, but we decided to give Mitchell that sub opportunity. He came on early in the third quarter for Pendles, as you mentioned, Luke, as a tactical sub. Believe it or not, Tom Mitchell was still one of 4 players to register double figures in contested disposal possession counts, which just goes to show that that impact that he can have on the game. But what do you make of that call as a whole?
Yeah, interesting. It's like arrogance. It's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And I think coming into a game like Freo, you can afford to do something like that. Saw in the GWS game it was when we sub Pendles off, at a relatively earlier stage than what a sub would usually come on or off. So, an interesting one. Who knows? Maybe Tom Mitchell's reaching a point in the year where he could have benefited from a rest, but they didn't want to drop him. I mean, what sort of headache are we talking about if Finn McRae comes in and has 20 contested possessions and 3 goals?
Yeah, maybe Tom said, hey, you can rest me, but I still want to stay in because I might not get back in if I go completely out. And it might be a little bit of some of these guys, it's gotten to the point in the year where you don't really want to upset what the system is at the moment. So guys who've been in the VFL the whole year, is it too late to bring one of them in as an opportunity to play a game, but then you upset the system too much that then you take Tom Mitchell out and then he can't get back in, and then it sort of becomes a bit of a mess in that way. In that regard, you kind of feel like, have we got our best 25 to 26 locked in and the others are just unfortunately not going to quite get in there unless we have a dramatic run of injuries at some point. But at the moment, it feels like we're really settled, and the guys who haven't been able to get in to this point probably aren't going to get in. Is that a fair?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Barring touch wood, catastrophe with injury and whatnot. But I also think, again, you do these things in hope that they'll pan out a certain way, and I think it panned out exactly how the coaching staff and the selection committee would have wanted it to go, in terms of they would have probably identified Pendles as a target to come off at a certain time of the year, not being injured and stuff, of course, and just, Pendles is 3 games record holder at Collingwood. He's getting on there, so protect him at all costs. So, I think the Tom Mitchell sub situation went perfectly how they would have planned it out. But the reason why it raises questions for me is what happens if you lose heaven forbid, of Jeremy Howe in the first quarter, and then Tom Mitchell's the one coming on, and all of a sudden you've got an extra midfielder with a backman or even a tall key forward going down. So yeah, that was where the risk lied for me. Otherwise, I thought, no harm, no foul there.
Yeah, fair enough. Speaking of selection woes or headaches, we saw Dan McStay. He was the one that Fly was happy to give a crack. We spoke about it in detail last week about what he was going to do. There was no VFL over the weekend. He made his return. He was able to get a goal in that part of that second quarter blitz. He finished with 2, I believe, in the end. What do we make of his return and his impact on the contest in what was, let's be honest, a game that probably didn't give us a fair idea of just how influential he could be in a game?
He's probably going to take a few weeks again, just as it did earlier in the year, and we're starting to see, all right, this is the impact he can bring, and then he obviously copped his injury. So, again, it's going to take a little bit, but he's got the luxury of having this game in anyway, where it's a comfortable win. He gets on the end of a couple. Actually took a really nice contested mark in there as well. So, but I still, he's in that mix as we go towards September, and it's working that out. How does it quite stack up?
Yep.
If everyone is fit, you've still got to fit Myercheck back in there. Darcy Cameron back in. So it's just, but you're not paying someone $600K a year not to be playing in that best 22. And he's good enough, I think, to be in there. So it's just making it work and giving him that time.
You would have been a nice part of our discussion last week, Luke. We're talking about that comment. Anyway, Jack, what did you think?
Well, I was on Dan McStay watch on Saturday, Nico. It was probably the element of the game that I was most looking forward to. And I got to say, it wasn't quite the clear the forward line and just kick it to him every time like I really would like to see, and still hold that hope that we might get the chance to see one day. But he was, he seemed to be moving a lot more than what he was, from rounds 1 to 6 this year when he was in the side. He just seemed to, if he wasn't leading up to the ball himself, he was taking his opponent away from the contest, which then allowed for a more one-on-one opportunity with someone else. I know Alex Pearce went to him at the start, so maybe we identified that as we wanted to get Alex Pearce away from I believe I'm getting that name right, the big tall defender from Freo. Yeah.
Spot on.
So maybe that's why, because I initially saw him as a decoy. I was like, don't play him as a decoy, play him as the main bloke. But then my mate rightly pointed out that maybe it was more just to take their best defender out of the contest as opposed to pulling one of our best forwards into it. But it's a strange game because it's an easier level against a Freo. Probably isn't even easier than playing against the Bulldogs twos a couple of weeks ago. No offense to Freo, but still on McStay watch this week, Nico.
I just don't know if he's that clear the forward line type of forward. I think he actually fits in really nicely into the way our forward line sets up, that you've got so many targets that what you just spoke about, he's not so much a decoy, just sounds like he's not really doing much, but taking away the best defender and able to help out our other forwards in there and that's what happened was Elliott, Cox, Bobby Hill able to get on the end of a few because McStay's done the work, whether it's up the field or to get the best defender out of there.
Well, someone like Mason Cox and Ash Johnson, for example, reap the rewards of Dan McStay being there on Saturday because, Mason Cox, we went to him a lot last week against the Bulldogs, and because he quite often had the best or tallest defender on him at all times, there was not a lot of marks taken inside 450. I think he took at least 3 or 4 on Saturday, and that comes because Dan McStay is taking out the best defender with him. So, there's all sorts of avenues of Dan McStay.
In hindsight, I think it was the right call to play him, and judging by everything else that had been said throughout the week, because you don't play him against Fremantle with no VFL. You're not playing him against Port, and I reckon that would have ruled him out for the season because Myercheck then comes back into the fold. Darcy Cameron as an example too. So I think Cameron going out of that team made it an obvious choice to bring McStay in. And fortunately for him, he gets that opportunity. And that's not to say he keeps his spot in the side for the rest of the season. That's not by any stretch. But I think if he didn't play against Fremantle, it was going to be, as I mentioned last week, a Chris Mania in his first year, just to say, you know what, didn't work out. Get in the VFL for the rest of the season. We'll try again in 2024. So I'm glad he's gotten his opportunity. Let's see what he does against Port this week. No?
No, absolutely agree. Nothing further to add.
I have to admit, when did this part of the conversation happen on last week's episode? Because I listened or watched on YouTube about 20 minutes or so, but I must have not.
AskPiesNation / pretty much.
Blended. It was a big conversation. My to the point of what you just said before, Lukey, about you're not paying someone 600k a year playing the twos. Obviously, you don't want to play 600k for someone playing the twos, but that doesn't mean just because they're on 600k that they should be playing based on their wage. They need to be in there because of form.
That is a good good call.
Last point I want to make on the game before we get to votes, unless anyone else had anything, that rubbish jumper clash. Who in their right mind thought that they would put Fremantle, who have worn white every single time against us when they play at the G, in the purple and the white shorts?
Well, I think Oleg, when he was running inside 50, kicked it to 2 Freo players. And it actually, when you watch it, you're like, I can see why he got a bit confused. Because running at that, he had about 3 bounces to this point, running at full pelt, running inside 50, doesn't know whether to go for goal or pass it off, tries to do the unselfish thing. And it did kind of look like, you got 2 magpies running in, or at least one of them's a magpie, which it turned out they were both Freo players. So,
what a ridiculous concept, seriously. Who thought, and I'm sure actually watching it at the game, Jack, would have been worse.
Mate, it was overcast day. It didn't help, although it was hard enough to see as it was, and there was legit. You could not tell who was who and what was going on, especially in those tight, in tight contested areas. So it was ridiculous.
They wore white in a grand final, so why are they not wearing?
They wore white against us in the semi last year. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Well, why would you not? But it doesn't make sense. If we were over there, then yes, we wear the white, they wear the purple.
Someone packed the wrong bag, Nico. It has to be. Has to be.
It's just.
And if it was a closer game, it would have been talked about a lot more. But because it was not really, it just hasn't really.
Shocking. Anyway, let's get to our votes then from the weekend. I have counted the fan votes up. This is almost a pointless exercise to do now because it's just Nick Dacos winning this thing every week. And he did again. So he smashed it again. He was, what was it? About 330 votes clear of the next best, which was his brother, Josh. Elliot, Adams, Maynard, Moore, DeGoey, Quainer, Markov and John Noble rounded at the top 10 for the round. And the only change to the top 5 is that Josh Dacos moves into second over Jordan DeGoey. But Nick now has an incredible 49 vote lead over his brother Josh heading into the last 6 games of the year. So Nick would have to have 6 consecutive quiet games, and then his brother and Geordie would all have to have outstanding finishes if they were to get on top. So that is the top 5 as it stands. So pretty standard stuff. I'm sure we're pretty similar. Let's get to our votes.
Yeah, we are. Though I've had Josh Dacos as a stiff non-contributor to my votes. I try to do these things without looking at the stats. I think that's probably a mistake this week because Josh Dacos really did have an exceptional game. Just being there on the day, he wasn't an absolute standout for me anyway. That's just what I thought. I know many would disagree, and probably rightfully so. But yeah, stiff Josh Dacos. Isaac Quainer I thought had an amazing game. Tay and Billy Elliott. But I've got one to Darcy Moore. I thought, although the first quarter was tight, I thought the back 6 were exceptional in setting up the way we played throughout the rest of the game. I mean, Darcy Moore finishes with 11 intercept possessions for the game. He's just phenomenal. Doing no harm to his All-Australian claims at all.
He had 4 intercept marks in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Insane.
It's ridiculous.
And
yeah.
the record's 10.
Which he got to earlier.
But 4 at quarter time.
Yeah.
I think we had... Did we have... I think it was 8 during... It might have been quarter time or early the second quarter. We had 8 intercept
already,
marks.
yeah. Incredible.
So Murphy contributing to that as well. So.
Yeah, and they really do set up the way we like to play our footy, playing off half-back. So, gave 1 to Darcy Moore, 2 to Braden Maynard, just returning to the typical Braden Maynard footy that we all love him for, never giving up, really setting the standard, I think, for the rest of the side on how we want to be physically and getting ourselves injected to the game. And, 3 to Nick Dacos. Lukey.
My 1 vote, Braden Maynard, same thoughts as you. Just an absolute baller machine and sets the tone for us really well. 2 votes, Josh. I don't know how you don't have him in there.
Yeah.
Very stiff.
Probably very silly.
We're going to crop that little part of where he said he wasn't a standout performer and put it on TikTok. And but yeah, he's just so important to our spread from the contest and the quick movement out of there, the clean ball use. So again, another exceptional game from him and 3 votes to Nick. My favourite play of the game, I think, was when he gave the hands off. It ended up with Cox, I think, tapping it over and Nick just
in
kept
the middle of the ground.
Yeah, Nick kept running and got on the end of it again, and then he's running inside 50, and he's either having a shot or passing it off, but it ends up being marked in the goal square by Elliot, was it? But that play was just like Harlem Globetrotters stuff. And Nick that sums him up. He just keeps running and gets on the end of it again, has multiple possessions in the chain, and is so clean with it that we're able to get it forward and get a goal from it. So, yeah, another 3 votes for Nick. What about you, Nico?
Exactly the same as you, Lukey. Maynard 1, Josh 2, Nick 3. Pretty much all that needs to be said about that. We've got our Guess the Crowd competition winner coming up on the other side. A quick look at our VFL and VFLW teams leading up to the weekend. And, of course, a big chat about Port Adelaide as part of AskPiesNation. So stick around. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Let's switch up the structure a little bit and get straight into our Guess the Crowd competition winner. Before we do, margins. How did we go this week, Lukey?
We had 2. GL Finn Standard Bread, pies by 46 on Instagram. And I had another one. Oh, yeah. Ross Martin, 46 points.
Good effort.
I was 41. I was Ash. There were 40 points, and if he missed, it was going to be 41, and then there was no other score. He kicked it, and it was 46, so I was a bit annoyed about that. But
did you go close?
No, I didn't. I try to stay away from that stuff, just as long as we win.
And last week, I was 14 points, and we won by 12.
Well,
so I'm getting...
There was one man here that did guess it correctly. Let's take a listen.
Monday headline is Pies get the job done convincingly by, I'm going to go tip a margin for my headline, by 46 points.
Oh, okay.
Mason Cox kick 3.
Wow. There you go. So I know he's not here, but shout out to Marcus.
Two in a year.
I thought he would enjoy that.
And I didn't know he tipped that, so that was a shock for me. Good on him.
And he had Cox for 3, kicked 1 goal, 1 in the end. So, yeah, could you imagine he could have got that? I would have been asking him for lotto tickets, 100%. Anyway, let's get to, I guess, the crowd competition winner. It's Troy this week. Did you have an idea of how far away he may have been?
About 150, I think, roughly.
Beautiful.
So,
good on. Good effort. Big crowd as well, by the way.
Huge crowd. Yeah. And I know we've been turning up all year, so credit to the Magpie Army. Please keep doing so. But I think if there was a day where you were expecting it not to get over 60,000, it was Saturday. It was cold, so cold. Rain obviously settled in the last quarter. So, yeah, huge shout out to the Magpie Army.
When 38,000 rock up the night before for a top 4 clash.
One of the games of the year.
Well, they're all at the snow, the Melbourne Spurs at the moment, so footy's the furthest thing from their mind.
Exactly right. All right, well, let's get Troy on the phone, see if he was one of those 60-odd thousand that watched us beat the Dockers.
Hello?
Is this Troy?
It is.
G'day, Troy. Nicholas here from the Pies Nation podcast, mate. Thanks for joining us and being our Guess the Crowd competition winner for this weekend. Let's get straight off the bat. Were you there on Saturday to watch us beat the Dockers?
No, being in Perth, it makes it a little bit hard, but I was on the couch watching.
Oh, fair enough. We've had a few WA fans on now, so great to get you on again, Troy. Now, don't know what the Dockers community are like over there in WA. Was there much noise following the Saturday result? I couldn't imagine there was too much going on over there.
No, it was pretty quiet, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Not much going on. It's pretty quiet town this year.
We don't mind that at all. We've asked a few people who have joined us from WA this year what it is like being a Collingwood fan over in the West. What's your personal experience being, a fan of the black and white over in West Australia?
One of the worst days of my life was probably the Monday after the 2018 Grand Final. Working in an office environment filled with West Coast supporters was pretty hard to take. Had the general manager coming in playing the theme song on his phone throughout the day, and so that was pretty tough. But last year or so, they've been pretty quiet.
Yeah, I feel you there, mate. I haven't been able to listen to the song Eagle Rock the same since that day. So, yeah, horrible times indeed. I'm glad I wasn't living in Perth, that's for sure, or indeed in Western Australia. Thanks so much for coming on, mate. Just Jack here. I've got a bit of a question on what you feel our form is going to look like come the end of the year. We've got a really, really tough run home, I believe, and our finals credentials are really going to be looked at in the next sort of 6 weeks. So how do you feel our finish to the year is going to go?
I think we'll do okay. I think we've obviously got tough games against Port, Brisbane, and Geelong, they're the ones that I see as tough. The other guys, I think Hawthorn, Carlton, Eston, we should do those relatively easily. Probably the Geelong one's probably the most dangerous one, I reckon.
Yeah. Coming into form at the right time of the year, the Cats, Lukey.
Yeah, agree with that. G'day, Troy. It's Luke. Thanks for coming
Hey, mate.
on and congratulations on the Guess the Crowd. It was one of the worst days of my life that Monday as well, and I was here in Melbourne, so I can't even imagine what it was like for you. Sort of just run us through did you grow up in Perth being a Collingwood supporter, or sort of run us through the journey of your Collingwood journey?
And I'm from Victoria, down sort of a couple hours south of Melbourne. Sort of became a Collingwood supporter. My sister was a Collingwood supporter, so I kind of followed in her footsteps. Been in Perth since 2007. So, I've always been a Collingwood fan, pretty much. Don't get too many games, unfortunately, these days. I think 2019 was the last game I went to, unfortunately. But, always very keen to read as much info and many articles and many videos as I can. Keep up with the boys.
Yeah, there you go. Hopefully,
usually try and get the training when I get to Melbourne, so at least see the boys train if I can't get to a game.
Yeah, not too bad. Did you head to the West Coast Collingwood game this year, at least in Perth?
I thought about it, but I couldn't get anyone to go with me.
Well, I don't think anyone wants to watch West Coast right now, to be fair, so that makes sense. Tell us, Troy, what's been the most enjoyable part of watching the Pies this year? Of course, there's been some great wins, some awesome individual brilliance from so many players in our team. What's been the one highlight you've taken out of the 2023 campaign so far?
Well, one highlight, just the competitiveness and they just don't give up. I've seen time and time again how they just go for it in the last quarter and come back from nowhere. Just the ability to manage games. They'll dominate one quarter, half a game sort of thing, and then just control it. And their sort of joy and happiness in before and after games and even during games. It's just, I don't remember ever having a moment or a time like this at the club as a supporter.
Yeah, nice one, mate. I've just got a question just to backtrack a little bit. How easy do they make it, or hard is it for WA Collingwood supporters to get along to West Coast and Freo games at Optus Stadium? Because and when we play them up there, of course, no one really wants to go watch them, as Nico said. Otherwise, I've always been really interested for an insight in that. Is there like a WA Collingwood membership you can buy that guarantees you access to games over there? Or because I know West Coast, they have like a waiting list on their membership at the moment where you can't even get in as a regular West Coast member. So is it hard to get along to the footy as a Melbourne-based supporter?
I know on the Collingwood website they have an interstate membership, I think. Gets you access to, I think it's 3 games in Melbourne and the game within your state, provided there's tickets available, or provided there's game playing. I haven't had that membership. But I don't think it's too bad. But I can't be 100% sure on that.
Yeah, nice. There you go.
I'll just finish off with, you've been a supporter for a long time, so I'd like to know who's your favourite player, Collingwood player of all time? Who's one that either current or a past player that sticks in your mind as one of the greats of the club?
Yeah, growing up it was always Gavin Brown, just his hardness and stuff like that. And then it sort of moved along to Buckley, and present day it's Pendles. Love the man. Probably those 3 boys really.
Yeah,
generation.
A nice little trio there.
Yeah.
Gavin Brown love also, pretty nice to see. Troy, thanks for coming on and being part of the Pies Nation podcast, mate. Really appreciate giving us some of your insight as a WA fan of the black and white. And hopefully we'll be enjoying many wins throughout the season. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks guys. Love the podcast.
Cheers, Troy. Thank you.
Thanks, Troy.
There we go. That was Troy joining us as part of the Guess the Crowd competition. That could be you if you guessed the crowd closest. So be sure to get involved with the social media posts that come out before game day. And if you guess the crowd closest to the pin, you'll be joining us as part of the Guess the Crowd competition on the Pies Nation podcast. So these WA fans, they're really coming thick and fast, especially with Freo and West Coast doing no good. Maybe they've jumped ship.
Yeah, it's pretty funny how it's all changed since as I subtly take
Smooth, Luke. Very smooth. Yep.
Since 2018, a lot has changed. Obviously, we had the heartbreak, and we just spoke about that, how that Monday was one of the worst days of our lives. But pretty much since then, we're the ones kind of laughing. And if we can go all the way this year, then we will definitely be the ones laughing.
Yeah, it was horrible. Mate, Eagle Rock, every time it comes on the
Yeah, I
radio,
agree.
it's straight off. I reckon they played that more times after. I didn't hang around too long after they announced Norm Smith. That's all I really cared about, and then got out of there. But
No.
I reckon they played Eagle Rock more times than they played the Eagles theme song.
I didn't
after
even
that.
wait that long.
Yeah.
Oh, I left.
I hung around, and then I was going home, really, not in a good state. And then I ended up going out because I kind of changed my tune a bit. And then they played that at midnight wherever I was.
Oh.
And I saw it had some Collingwood gear on or whatever, and I just absolutely copped it. So
Oh, no.
it was the Sunday, the next day, waking up and realising
Yep.
that happened. It was like a nightmare had happened, and coming to the realisation that you've got to live through what was to come after that. So, yeah.
Let's get to a quick VFL, VFLW wrap-up. Of course, there was no VFL over the weekend with the bye, but we do take on Sandringham this week at the AIA Centre this Sunday afternoon. So, a nice opportunity to get down to the VFL.
Can you explain to me, Nico, how in a team that's got how many teams is in the VFL comp?
Too many, 21.
And there's a bye every 5 weeks. What's the go with that?
I don't know. It takes a genius to work out this VFL fixture and the teams that are in it and the play.
So Melbourne had a bye,
yeah,
and
Casey
St
did.
Kilda had a bye.
Yeah, there were 9 teams of the 21 that had a bye, but this week there's 3.
Because I seen Grundy played a 14v14
Yeah.
against St Kilda.
Poor
so
Brody, by the way.
we missed
Yeah,
him.
so fascinating how it works. I don't know, but anyway,
And we've already had a bye or two.
This is that was our 3rd bye, I believe, of the season, and you know what? It just doesn't make sense, and it never will. So
Anyway.
I don't know. But anyway, Sandringham Sunday afternoon. Get around if you can. AIA Centre, VFLW. Shout out to the girls. Grand final bound. Awesome to see. So we've got the week off, of course, with the prelim taking place this week between Essendon and Port Melbourne. So hopefully it gives us a good opportunity to have a break before winning a second VFLW premiership. So awesome to see the squad get on top. It was a 4-point win over Essendon in the semi-final at Vic Park. So just got over the line, but was able to do enough in the end. So hopefully we have a premiership and one of many premierships to celebrate in 2023.
Do we know when that grand final's scheduled in?
No, not sure. So I assume it's next week, considering the prelims this week, but TBC. So we'll have that for you next week. AFLW fixture also came out today as well. I know there was a lot of controversy about the amount of games. Only 10 rounds, and it starts on early September. So interesting fixturing once again by the AFL. But anyway, we'll just continue to criticise them at every opportunity, pretty much.
Got round 5, grand final week. So when the men are lining up for
ridiculous,
grand final
isn't
week,
it?
they've got that's essentially coming up to the middle of their season. So they're trying to pump that up as like a bit of a festival of footy. So
Don't know if that's
hopefully
gonna work.
maybe they've got a few games on during the week or from Thursday or something like that for the public to get around, especially considering, in Melbourne, it's always vibrant come grand final week.
Yeah.
So maybe trying to take advantage of that. But yeah, otherwise, strange from the AFL once again, Nico.
Let's get to AskPiesNation, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I said Facebook already. TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. AskPiesNation this week was simply about the Port game and the lead up to it. And this can count as a bit of a preview because it's going to be a massive game on Saturday night at Adelaide Oval. So keen to get our thoughts as well as the fans as we do every week.
Yeah, so I'll start with Hells, JD. Got everything crossed for this one. The Part Adelaide FC are Magpie wannabes. They don't fully embrace their AFL status and colours, hence Part Adelaide.
Gee, okay, yeah. Port Adelaide have risen to the point where their hatred has come as much as a Carlton or an Essendon or a Richmond. And it's just because of the way they've been acting, and we just don't like them doing that well and trying to claim their black and white stripes as their own. So I don't mind
Shout out Kane Corns, Nico.
it, of course.
And it's the opposition supporters of other clubs that jump on with them that
Oh, of course, typical.
continue to instigate it. Connor 6708. The team that concerns me is Brisbane and maybe Geelong. The others don't. So I still feel.
So he's writing this one off, basically.
Well, I wouldn't be, but he is. Jamie Curry, our biggest test comes in the form of Geelong and Brisbane. The only nagging doubt I have for us is key forwards. Our game style means we are at risk 2 big keys, and those have 2 each. Need to tighten that up, in my opinion.
It's an interesting one. I feel like they had a 60-point loss to the Blues this Saturday evening just after our game, Nico. And I was saying off air, if you like 60-point losses these days aren't as catastrophic as what they perhaps have been in the past. So I think this game is, I'm ranking it as right up there in terms of as far as difficulty goes for the rest of the season. This is right up there.
All three of their losses, though, have been by 10 goals or more, which is a bit concerning, I would think, if you're Port. But anyway, each to their own.
Because as big of a test as it is for us this week, it's a massive test for them because have they really shown their credentials to be a premiership threat? I know they won, was it 13 in a row, but, it was how we done it last year as well. Everyone sort of made excuses for this win and that win and this win and that win. And it's not until you prove yourself against the best and that you can do it. So it's a huge test for them as well. Rob Andrews, I'm feeling pretty good about the way next week will either end with us on top or 2 games clear on top.
Yeah, true. We'll still be top of the table by the end of it regardless. So that's a nice way to put it.
Freddie, I'll go with his other name, Matt Innes, because there's a bit of crudeness, I think, in there. I'm nervous, but pretty comfortable about Port. I thought the team that exposed us the most was Brisbane, so I'd like to see us do well in that game. Another big one coming up at Marvel.
I don't care what anyone says. It has to be at the G. But anyway, if I keep going on about it, I'll crack it even more. So go on.
Adzi 23, Carlton's win makes the outcome less significant, but outside of Brisbane, Port are a real test. Will be fascinating to see how our game holds up in what will be a high-pressure environment.
What's your viewpoint on this? Because if we were to beat Port while I was still on this streak, the excuse would come out, they were due to lose one, yada, yada. But coming up now that they've just lost, do you expect them to be, if we do beat them again, or I guess what am I trying to say? What's the situation you think coming into this one is compared to if they say they had have beaten Carlton coming up?
Well, yeah, the talk around it was that Port were going to start red hot favourites in this contest against us. I know they were looking 2 weeks ahead. There was even some commentary around that they were resting players this week against Carlton just for us, which I don't know how true that is. I mean, sometimes it's just coincidences happen. But yeah, I'd be surprised if Port didn't start favourites here. To be honest, they've been the second best team outside of a few heavy losses against us, and I think the Port side that we're playing this week isn't the Port side that we played in round 2 by any stretch. So they are they've been exceptional and they've played some really quality footy. They've been challenged in a lot of games this year and responded to challenge, which is also a really good way to measure up. So personally, I'd be surprised if they didn't start favourites on Saturday night, but that's just one's opinion.
It's also something different in the fact that we do have a fantastic interstate following, but Collingwood will definitely be outnumbered
for sure
at the Adelaide Oval. It's going to be insane, and it's not something we've encountered much, if at all, this year. Even in our other interstate trips, we've felt pretty in the favouritism with the crowd. So this is going to be something different, I think, for the squad. And me and Jack will be there.
Yeah, hopefully we get out alive.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Helping out. So that's another factor that's going to play a part in the game. So Grant Tobin, I'm still thinking no. I reckon our biggest test was Melbourne. I think we stack up pretty well against Port and we'll beat them by 30 points. Jeez. By being down 30 points down at 3/4 time and storming home to win by 2 points, just for the fun of it.
I'm surprised by the confidence we have about this game. But anyway.
Joshua Watson, being in Adelaide, it will definitely be tough, and if we were serious premiership favourites, we got to win these games. I think Brisbane at Marvel will be a bigger clash.
Brisbane keeps coming up. This is the question we need to ask.
The other teams that sit with us in that top 4 are, of course, Brisbane, Melbourne and Port Adelaide, and both times we've played those other 2 teams, we have lost. So this is huge for the context of our season in terms of how we stack up against teams that are meant to be around our level, so to speak. So,
and that's where the respect for Port Adelaide just isn't quite there because it's not proven. They haven't done it in previous years, I would say, gotten to that level. And
Brisbane are the same.
Brisbane, but Brisbane did beat us earlier this year, so that's where it's kind of like, well, that was the game where it felt the most like we weren't ever going to win that game. Whereas the Melbourne game's similar, but then again, I felt like we were able to...
we nearly pinched it.
We nearly pinched it in the end, but that Brisbane game, it could have been a lot more than what it was. I think it was about 30 points in the end, but it felt like they could have really killed us that night. So that's where the worry comes with Brisbane, and I'm of that view as well, that Brisbane's probably our biggest threat. And the one side I'm pretty worried about facing Probably not in the home and away, but once we get into the finals where it could be a do or die situation. Dave Elbow, we love playing over there. I reckon we're in for a great game that could range from the Pies by a point after the siren to the Pies by 70 points.
I love it.
Comes at a handy time as well, Nico, because they did drop that game against Carlton. So this week it's not built up as that who's going to go a game clear, because it is the game clear at the top sort of thing. I know we've got a tough run. I could see us dropping a few games towards the end of the season. But, I think that it's almost a free swing for us. I think if we drop this game, it's probably not seen as being so dramatic as if we dropped the game against Brisbane at Marvel or dropped the game against Essendon or someone like that.
Jay Thorne, no Butters. I'm not sure if that's confirmed or not.
Nothing confirmed at this stage. But
I was looking forward to see Nick and him go head-to-head. We should win, and like Bruzzy said, they better bring their A game.
Yeah, that would be a fascinating contest, those two, and to see who would get on top in that little battle. Not that they would be playing directly on each other at times anyway, but I'm not sure 100% if he will be fit and ready to play.
I hope he's playing.
Yeah. You want them at their best, don't you?
Yeah.
You want them at their best.
And you don't want that excuse to be if we do win, didn't have Butters. They didn't have this guy. They didn't have him. So you want, and I'm happy, and I think the boys are happy for that to be the case. You bring your best and we'll give you our best, and we'll see who goes on top. I'll finish with Dan J MCC, or MCC, yes. Probably nudge a 70-point win again, give or take a goal. There's so much
coming.
I'll tell you what,
so much confidence out there at the moment, and it's probably warranted. But I know you get worried.
Oh mate,
you don't even think we're a premiership contender yet.
You're waiting for us to mathematically qualify for finals still, aren't you?
This next 6 weeks is huge for us in terms of, we're the statistically best team sitting a game clear on top, but a big test coming into the finals aren't won in July or in April. They're won in the last day of September. So, we could. But I'm so cynical. We could go 27-0, make a grand final. I still wouldn't be confident. So.
I hope every one of those supporters are spot on, and we win this game by 12 goals, and we're coming back here, and the lids are nowhere to be seen. So, fingers crossed. But that was AskPiesNation, so get on board on all our social media pages, whether it's YouTube as well, TikTok. I know we're killing it there too. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be. So, be sure to continue to get involved. So, we heard from the fans just there. What are your thoughts leading up to the Port Adelaide game on Saturday, boys? Are you confident? Are you nervous? Do you think this is a little season defining, or is this just another one we have to get the 4 points in?
I think if we get the 4 points here, Nico, it takes the pressure off heaps for the rest of the season. And I think if you drop this game and then all of a sudden you're playing Carlton on a Friday night, you'd think Carlton will win this week against West Coast at home. Bloody hope not.
Imagine if they don't.
Oh, that'd be so good.
West Coast have been pretty competitive the last few weeks. So.
It'd be piss funny. Anyway.
That'd be awesome. We've got Carlton, then Hawthorn, and then we play Geelong and Essendon, and Brisbane in there as well, pardon me. So I feel like if it doesn't really sort of matter how you go about it, just get the win this weekend. It gives you that buffer, at least on top. You go would that say it's 2 games clear at the top. So then you could drop a game. Like all of a sudden, that Carlton, Brisbane, and Geelong game, if you can win 2 out of 3 there, you're absolutely flying. But it's amazing what a loss or a win and the difference in 4 points can make, Lukey.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited because, I'm going in as a you, Jack, and it's just kind of been a bit of a lull the last few weeks. I know we've had some nice, comfortable wins, but I feel like now the season kind of begins and the real stuff is about to get rolling, and we're about to get rolling as a footy club. I know we've been playing some really good footy, but we've only seen it in sort of bursts and patches, a quarter, 2 quarters, but now we're coming up against some of the best sides in the competition, and we've pretty much got nearly a best lineup of players to pick from, so not too many injury woes. So I'm really excited for what's to come over the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks and how we handle and stack up to the pressure that's going to come, and whether that's even the pressure of going 2 games ahead on the ladder and how we handle being the hunted. We've been the hunters for the last sort of 12 to 18 months, but now we're in that position where if we do win this week, we become the hunted all of a sudden, and how we handle that side of the equation. So, Yeah, I've been to the Adelaide Oval twice, but not for a Port Adelaide game, and the build up to this game feels like a genuine final, and I just can't wait for that. Never tear us apart before, and just how loud it's going to be. And we go to the MCG most weeks with 60 to 80,000 Collingwood supporters, but just to be the enemy there is going to feel so good, I reckon.
For those watching or listening that are heading to Adelaide as well as these two gentlemen right here, and if you guys plan to catch up, be sure to get involved with the socials as well. Tag us, get involved, take pictures with these celebrities right here. Get around
Nation meetup.
Get around them as much as possible. We want to see multiple photos in the black and white. So, just a little side note there. Do I dare ask about selection here, boys? Because we've got Brodie Mychek and Darcy Cameron expected to be playing this week. What do we do in terms of who comes out of this side? We've fortunately had no injury concerns to come out of this game. It's a ruck. It's a key forward. Are you willing to put someone on the line as who may be the unlucky person or people that are going to come out of this team?
No, because they'll play this week and they'll get 3 votes and I'll look like an idiot like I have the whole year. But I don't know. I think it's getting to the point, Nico, and this is ridiculous, that you can't sort of keep blokes in the side who have played good in other parts of the year, but it's going to get to a point where it's a week by week basis. If you don't play good enough and you're not in the top 5 players in our team, you're on the chopping block. And unfortunately this week, I think that comes in the form of Billy Frampton. I've and a few others really rated him as a bit of a swing man, could go back, could go forward, ruck, all of a sudden. That's where he brings his best footy. But if you're not going to use him as a swing man within a game, how much damage can he really have? And I think kicked a goal on the weekend, but outside of that, was relatively quiet. And again, I love Billy Frampton. I think he should be in the team, but maybe because he's the option this week, he has to come out to make room for an incumbent Brodie Mychek. And then who knows? Next week it might be Brodie Mychek that's not good enough. It's a week by week basis thing, and yeah, I'm certainly glad I'm not a part of the selection committee for sure. But there was someone else. So it was Darcy Cameron has to come in as well,
and Brodie Mychek, because
he was the one that I thought we did miss a bit, because Sean Darcy got on top of us, and they actually I think they won centre clearances. If I'm not mistaken, Nico.
Got injured, didn't he, late in the game?
Sean Darcy, hurt his leg, and they still were able to win the clearances by about 3 or 4, which is probably not. We have been on top of that stat this year, but we haven't probably not been our DNA as opposed to we really again like to score off half back. So an interesting one. I think Darcy Cameron has to come back in, but who do you make way for?
Luke, you got any suggestions?
It's a really good. I've got no idea, to be honest. It's that time of the year where you're going to start to. McRae has experimented. The coaches have experimented positional wise, who's in, who's out. But now we're getting to the point where you've got to solidify that best looking lineup, the 22, 23, and where they actually play on the day. And you look towards September, and you're like, Darcy Cameron and Mychek are both there, so they've got to come in. Now, who's not?
In my opinion, it's a group of 5 that you pick these two from. And again, it's going to be very controversial, so don't come at me. It's just as hard for me as I'm sure it is for Fly. The group of 5 that I'll be picking from to take out is McCreery, Johnson, Cox, Hill, and Lipinski. Now, I don't know which one of those 5 or 2 of those 5 you take out. Sorry, did I not add Frampton? Sorry, make it Frampton. So 6. So Frampton, McCreery, Johnson, Cox, Hill, Lipinski. 2 of those 6 make way for Mychek and Cameron because they are bona fide best 22 players every day of the week at picking them. Which of those 6, if you want to give Frampton the option, you can. Bobby Hill was pretty quiet on the weekend. Yeah. I know he was able to kick a goal, but I think he only finished with 3 touches. Do you go like for like and get rid of Cox? Does Johnson has he done enough with his 3 majors to stay in the team? Does McCreery do enough to stay in that team? Does Lipinski? I know that's a big call to make because we've just brought him back in, but have any of those players or all of those players done enough in this circumstance, not in general because they obviously would have, but in this circumstance to keep out of Mychek or a Darcy Cameron?
Well, I think they all have.
I know.
On
They
previous games, but that's more to my point. It's
Yeah.
going to come to if you have a low game or a down game, and someone's in the twos killing it, and that's important as well. Let's not forget about that. It's also important for the incumbent player, Brody Myercheck and Darcy Cameron. It's a strange situation because we know they're best 22 players. Brody Myercheck's won our goal kicking for the past few years, and Darcy Cameron's been an absolute star, especially in the absence of a Brodie Grundy. So. Yeah, they were going to slot straight back in. But, I don't think you could take someone like a McCreary out because I know he hasn't hit the scoreboard for a few weeks, but his pressure and his what he does off the ball, I think, is what we have him in the side for. I think if he's getting on the end of goals, it's a bonus for us. But, yeah, all those other names, absolutely. And I'd hate to see like someone. They're all like someone to play in this team, but
for sure.
there's just not enough. There's just not enough room, and unfortunately, if it's not your week, it's not your week, and you have to come in. But I think this week, if both Myercheck and Darcy Cameron are fit, I'd unfortunately, and it's just like you can't help but feel sorry for them. It's not like you're being the worst of the of the best, but yeah, I think I'd be taking out Ash Johnson and Billy Frampton.
What about you?
Because with Ash and Bobby Hill to an extent, Bobby Hill and Ash, and Cox a little bit as well. Just the X factor they bring to the side is why I can't. You go, they didn't play sort of great this week or last week or whatever, but then next week Bobby Hill.
Of course,
turns it on, and that's
100%.
kind of the issue with his role is that one week he might look like he's not doing much, and then the next week he's kicking 3 or 4, being a part of so much attacking chains, kicks a goal of the year, contender, mark of the year, kind of. And Ash is similar. That he looked really good on Saturday, I thought, and I just don't know how that was the kind of game where I'm like, this is why we want Ash in this side. This is why we want Ash at the club. So I can't see. I really think it will kill his confidence if you take Ash out of the side after that game. You can't take Bobby out because he's just got that X factor. Cox, I don't know. I can't take him out because he just does the little things that mean big things. He fires us up. He takes big marks when required. He's able to help out in the ruck and...
I think if you're taking Frampton out, you can't take Cox. You can't take both.
It's one or
of
the
them
other.
out.
It's last week against after the Bulldogs, I was saying it's Mason. He has to come out, but then goes out this week, and he has a slightly better game than Frampton. Now I'm saying, well, it's Frampton that comes out. So
now I'll finish off with Frampton and unfortunately McCreary, just because for me, I can't take one of the others out ahead of him, and McCreary. Does that mean he could be the sub? Have we calculated that in?
No. So this is straight in, straight out.
So they're out of the whole.
Essentially, Tom Mitchell. You have to make not only way for the
someone else comes in.
Someone
has
to come in as the sub as well. So could you drop a? That's what Luke. Maybe that's where. This is so confusing.
Yeah.
Can we need to write an email to the AFL next year? Can we have 25-man squads?
It'd be interesting.
So I'd love McCreary as a sub. I love when he come on as the sub. But just right now, across the 4 quarters, he's the one where he unfortunately hasn't been doing enough across a 4 quarters to keep his spot for mine.
I'll go very quick because I don't want to spend too much longer on this because we're just going to confuse ourselves even more. I think McCreary sub and you put Mitchell back on. Frampton, Johnson go out. Cameron and Myercheck go in.
And that's not set and forget either.
No, that's absolutely not set and forget, but that's just what I think would be best. As stiff as that would be for Ash Johnson, coming off a 3-goal game against Fremantle, I know you talk about the confidence thing, but I think he needs to understand that he's not getting in ahead of Myercheck. And if we're going with the McStay experiment, which Fly's already committed to, then there's no turning back now. So it might just mean he misses a week and he comes back in the following. Who knows? But that's what I'm going for.
But what it does as well, Nico, we spoke about getting these boys in the off season, is it creates pressure for spots.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
If they're not performing there, the bloke's there ready to go, and ready to come back in. So as much as it's a headache, it could also be a good thing as well.
All right, before we get to Monday headline, because I don't know, it's just messing with our heads a bit. Shout out to Taylor Adams. It's going to be his 200th game this week. Of course, a great guest of ours on the pod last month. And it's great to see him playing such a role in this team. And shout out to him for getting to 200 AFL games across his time at the Giants and, of course, at the Pies. So, awesome effort from Tay.
Yeah, no, fantastic career he's put together, and it's sort of come about really quickly, that 200 now. So, shout out to Tay, and he wouldn't have been able to do it without coming on the podcast. I don't think.
This was the spark he needed, 100%.
So if you're listening and you're maybe on the cusp of Brampton or
he was
someone
struggling,
like
now he's
Get on!
managed to get there. So, shout out to Tay, and he's playing really well and had a fantastic game on the weekend. So he's building really nicely.
Been so pleasing to see as well, Nico, that in all this chaos, he's been able to, like Jack Crisp in the past few weeks, been able to find a role in this side, which is completely different to the role he was playing, 3 or 4 years ago when he was in the guts of the midfield, and what a help Tommy Mitchell's been for him, and giving him a chop out for contested possessions and whatnot. And we talk about the pain of 2018. I think Tay probably feels it a lot more than anyone, because had have maybe got on the winning end of that game, Nico, I feel like he would have been Norm Taylor Smith Norm Taylor Smith. He would have been Norm Taylor Adams for sure. So
Taylor Smith or Taylor Swift?
Not going there. Did you guys get tickets to that, Lukey? Going along to that?
I'm
not a Swiftie.
Didn't bother, mate. No.
Anyway.
Monday headline, boys. Let's get to it. What are we predicting on Saturday night?
It's a power trip. Pies are on a power trip, and we get it done by 30 plus, and go 2 games clear.
I like it. I always forget about this segment. I really probably should put more time into it.
Power outage.
From a personal standpoint, I hope I've got an extremely sore head after celebrating a big win on Saturday night. Of course, drink responsibly. Get down to Liquorland for all your drink deals and whatnot.
Yes.
Nico,
yes, very good.
Oh, what do I go with? Darcy Moore sneaks forward and kicks a goal. Oh. That's my headline for this week. It's going to be in the paper there.
Captain's goal.
He's been running off half back. He only needs to press just a little bit higher, and he's going to get up there and sneak in a goal.
Jeez, if we have to move him forward, Jack, then that's where my concern's coming. I'll go simple. Pies win. We'll have 10 individual goal kickers minimum. Big spread across the load, and it's going to make things even tougher for selection after that. But we'll have a big win. So that's a Monday headline. Let's wrap up there and not try to confuse ourselves too much more. Jack and Luke, have fun. South Australia, enjoy.
We'll definitely do a little meet up and
have
a few beverages together, and see if we catch any other Pies Nation.
Get on board, yes. As I said, make sure you get to these guys, find every pub and bar in Adelaide that you can see these guys, get photos, tag us, get involved.
If you're across the social media on Instagram in particular, I hear AFL Central will be in Adelaide as well.
Ooh, yes.
He gave me a little stat to mention. Shout out. Collingwood are 11-0 this year when Nick Dacos has a bounce.
Yeah, he loves his bounces, doesn't he? Big fan.
So, Nick, if he has a bounce in Adelaide, I think we'll win.
All right. Very keen. This week, Nico, Port Adelaide, as Luke sort of highlighted before, huge game for them, perhaps their biggest game of the year outside of the showdown. So, yeah, looking forward to being outnumbered for once, which is not something I've experienced too much. I think Sydney, both times I went up last year, that was as intense as it's got for me on interstate.
They're rugby league.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. This is my first true. Went over to Adelaide this year for gather round, but we played St Kilda, so a bit of a strange one. So I think this is my first cutthroat interstate trip. All the rest of them have sort of been against the Sydney, GWS, Brisbane. So going to get a real taste of it this week, and keen as.
Good luck, boys. That's all I'm going to say. Hopefully I'll see you here in one piece next week. But until next week, I've been your host, Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening or watching to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold.